So today we'll be talking about the anatomy of the typical cervical vertebra, inshallah. So this is the typical cervical vertebra and this is the body and rest of the things are arch. So this is the pedicle, this is the lamina. Let's talk about the process. This is the ankle process, this is the superior articular process, this is the inferior articular process, this is the transverse process, and this is the spinous process, which is by feet. And let's talk about the transverse process. This is the anterior root, this is the posterior root, this is the anterior tubercle, this is the posterior tubercle, and the bony bar, this is the costotransverse bar. So in case of the transverse process, the posterior root, it represents the true transverse element, whereas the anterior root, anterior tubercle, the costotransverse bar, and the posterior tubercle, it represents the costal element. And also the tip of the transverse process, it corresponds to the posterior tubercle. Let's talk about the foramen. So this is the foramen transversarium in case of the transverse process, and this is the vertebral foramen, and this is the intervertebral foramen. This is the intervertebral foramen. Let's talk about the articulations of the typical cervical vertebra. So we can see the body to body. This is the intervertebral joint, which is a secondary cartilaginous joint. On the side of the disc, this is the ancovertebral joint between the ankle processes. It is a plane type of synovial joint. See the sliding and gliding movement in plane type of synovial joint. You can also see the facet joint. This is the facet joint, or interfacet joint or zygobifracial joint, which is also the plane type of synovial joint. And we see the intertransverse joint between the transverse processes, and interlaminar joint in between the lamina, and also interspinous joint. And these joints are the syndesmosis type of fibrous joint. So let's talk about the anatomical points of typical cervical vertebra. So this is a typical cervical vertebra. Body lies anteriorly and the arch lies posteriorly. Transverse process bears foramen transversarium. Upper surface of the body bears ankle process, which is directed upwards. Spinous process is short by feet and directed backwards. Superior articular process is directed upwards and backwards. Inferior articular process is directed downwards and forwards. This is all about the anatomy of the typical cervical vertebra. Thank you.